Well, hello, my crazy puppy. This is Sergeant Pepperoni, y'all. The Red Terror. The Auburn Menace. Ahoy, y'all, and good afternoon. Here we are doing a sound test to see how well y'all can hear me over the music, or if I need to turn the music down. I know I've got a bit of a bad habit with music volume being a little too high in my videos, but to be fair, when I'm editing, the music volume doesn't really sound that loud on my setup, so I'll try to tweak that for y'all and make it a little more enjoyable. I know some of y'all might not care for my music taste, but too fucking bad. I don't really care. It's my music taste and it's what I enjoy, so y'all are just gonna have to deal with it, or you can just click the video off. See ya! Why isn't that just turning and turning and respinning? What is going on? Don't tell me that shit's stripped. Alright, sound test complete. I turned it down a little bit. Hopefully that's a little more enjoyable for y'all. I ain't turning it down anymore because I want to be able to hear it over my tools. But without further ado, we're going to get started tearing this thing down so I can get that oil pressure sensor replaced. First thing to do, remove the seat. Obviously you need your key for that. Alright, go ahead and just stack this stuff down here out of the way. Side note for some of y'all, if you don't do this, you should probably occasionally lube your keyholes, because especially in the cold weather, they might start to freeze up if they're dirty. You might have trouble turning your key and snapping it. That'll be a pain to replace. Cheap insurance to make sure that doesn't happen. Alright, seat's off. Now that the seat's off, next thing to do is to remove this cover because it's in the way and you cannot access removing the side fairing without removing this. I like to keep my hardware right here on the lift so I don't lose it. If you can't figure this part out, you should probably just take your bike into the shop and pay somebody to do this for you. Alright. Now that that's off, I can go ahead and jack the bike up and make it a little more accessible for what I'm doing. Great leg workout, y'all. Alright, I'm not going to put it all the way up because I want to make sure y'all can still see what I'm doing in the frame. I like to use my jack handle as a brace from the lift because my lift didn't really come with a rod to do this, so this is what I use. And I'll let it actually go ahead and bleed down onto that, or close to it, that way it doesn't lose much height. And I say, town's old drive beer. So you gotta remove this first to get this off. Like I said, if you can't figure this part out, take it to a shop. Alright, now that that side cover's removed, start taking these T30 screws out with a T30 bit. Yes. You got two at the front here. Did that really wonderful. Do not over tighten these T30 screws, and I'll show you why in a minute. Y'all can see there what I was talking about. Be very careful not to over tighten those screws, or you end up like me here. Got the two at the front. One here. Generally, I like to put the hardware directly below where it's supposed to go if I don't stick it back in the hole. For these, I'm actually going to put the screws back in the hole once I remove the fairing so I do not lose the hardware. Alright, last one is up here that was underneath that battery cover. Now you can remove the fairing. Side note, there is a push pin down here into a bushing. So even though all these are loose, it won't come out until you pop that push pin down there loose. Don't forget about that. Alright, now that the fairing's off, I'm going to go ahead and return this hardware to its home. And yes, I know I should hand start them first instead of using the impact. If I was working on a customer's bike, obviously I would do that. But this is my bike, and I've been wrenching for a long time. And I've got a pretty good eye for making sure things are straight. You don't need to run them all the way in. Just go ahead and get a few threads in there so you know they're not going to back out and lose them. Good enough. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and turn the work light on, and I'll bring y'all in close to see what it is I'm doing down here. Get the screen on so I can see what's going on. Alright. Now that we have everything off the bike, everything I'm going to remove to get this job done anyway, I'll bring y'all in close. Alright, let's see if there we go. Right there on the right side of the screen, you can see the oil pressure sensor with the plug on the end right there next to the right side intake. So I'm going to grab a pair of needle nose pliers, and I'm going to go ahead and pop that plug off. This is a bit ridiculous, trying to work like this, how I have the GoPro positioned on the hat. Hopefully my audio is not too loud. I'll try to speak a little quieter so I'm not blowing out y'all's eardrums. Alright, needle nose pliers. Get down in here and undo this plug. Can't really get in there, so I'm going to have to do it from here. Thankfully, these are some pretty good pliers. Alright, oil pressure sensor is unplugged, as y'all can see now. I'll bring you in closer. You can see how oily it is down there from that thing leaking. Try to get out of the light so y'all can get a better view. Yeah. Alright, well, now that I got the plug undone, it's time to test out the new socket I ordered specifically for this job, because one needs a 21 millimeter socket to fit over that sensor, and I went with the Tecton brand deep well 21 millimeter because it had the largest open inner spacing that I could find on Amazon that would be here in time and allow me to have access to removing the sensor. And before I put this on the old sensor to remove it, I will show y'all new sensor. How about that? Perfect fit with room to spare on the inside, so no issues with possibly putting stress on this plastic and breaking it. This was the perfect socket for this job. And I'll put a link in the description and a picture of what it is I ordered, so y'all can go ahead and get the same socket if y'all need to do this job in the future yourselves. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put that down there. Put this back in the bag until I need it in a safe place, like over here next to my coffee. And I'm gonna go ahead and grab the tools I need to try to get this done. I would say this goes onto a universal, and then the universal goes onto an extension. So we're going to start with this, and then we're going to take our long extension. And I believe this will get us done to get that sensor off of there. So I'm going to go ahead and feed it through the top here. It'll go, it's just a tight fit, and you gotta move some wires out of the way. It actually might be easier to do it with just the socket and then connect the universal by what it looks like. So let's try that. Yeah, I got those wires in the way there. Alright. And this camera on my hat is certainly not making it any easier. Yeah, these wires back here make it a little difficult to access, so you gotta kind of work these out of your way to give you a little more room to access it. And of course I did that. I got it all oily and slippery. Hard to see, but there is quite a bit of oil down there on the case. So I'm going to go ahead and use that rag to soak that up. I'll pull that towel out of there, and y'all can see how, yeah, it still didn't even soak everything up. I should just leave it there for now. Alright, let's try to get this socket on here. There we go. Socket is in place. Now to attach the universal. This might be a bit tricky. Maybe I should have left the universal on the socket and put it on and then attach the extension to it, because this is going to be tricky. Alright, well, let's get it aligned and then see if we can push it on. Ah, there we go. Alright, it is in place, and this should be removed. Hopefully it's not reverse threaded. We're about to find out. It's not reverse thread, it is normal thread, and thankfully it's not on there super tight. And it's off, and it's out. And I wish I didn't drop it like that, so I could see how the gaskets were situated on there. Actually, I'm going to leave that right there if I don't need to take it out, because it'll make it easier to put the new one on. Let's try to put my finger underneath it and keep the crush washers and gaskets in place so I can see how they go on. Alright, looks like there's an O-ring. Where's the crush washer? Did the crush washer fall off? Well, I don't see it. I assume if the crush washer was on there and fell off, it would have fallen into the paper towel there, but it's not there, so... Was it missing a crush washer to begin with?
Hey, where'd he go? Did he disappear? Or was he never there to begin with?
Because the new one looks like it comes with an O-ring and a crush washer. And you can see there the port for the new sensor to go into. Be very careful and hand start this. Make sure you damn sure you don't cross thread it. Old pressure sensor. I mean, I don't really see any obvious failure with the old one, but it's definitely leaking. I could use my chisel, I guess. Alright, let's see. Nope, no crush washer underneath the O-ring, so the O-ring goes on first apparently, and then the crush washer on top of the O-ring. I would assume. Maybe. Would have liked to see it on here to know it goes on there, but I mean, why would they send it if you're not supposed to use it, right? See? You can see in the bag there, O-ring, crush washer. I would assume you're supposed to use both. I'm going to put the camera down and see if I can locate that crush washer and let you know if it goes on. Alright, I had to reposition my camera on my helmet here because working with it in front of my face there, trying to look around it with both eyes was pretty annoying, and I'm sure y'all weren't very amused with hearing the heavy breathing, having the camera literally right in front of my nose and mouth. So hopefully this is more tolerable for y'all and you can still see what I'm doing with the camera, you know, 6'4" in the air. But yeah, that is the new sensor in place. I hand started it and it's not quite tightened all the way, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the socket back on it. Let me get my extension, make this a little easier, I think. It's just turned on by a few threads there. I did not use the copper crush washer that came with it because I did not find an old copper crush washer anywhere around here when I took the old one off. I looked all down there on the case, all down here. I didn't hear anything fall when I took the old one off, so apparently there was not a copper crush washer. Damn mosquitoes. There was not a copper crush washer on it to begin with, so I'm going to put it back how it was from the factory, and I don't know, maybe that's why they leaked, because they didn't have the crush washer, or maybe not, who knows. But if it wasn't there to begin with, I don't really feel like putting it back. Let me see if I can get this socket on here without stressing the new sensor. These wires all up in the way, making it difficult. Okay, there we go. All right, new sensor's on. Well, hello, my crazy puppy. This is Sergeant Pepperoni, y'all, the Red Terror, the Auburn Menace, as the rabbits in the yard, I'm sure, have come to know him. All right. Yeah, that's loose. That's tight. Alright, let's go ahead and tighten this new sensor into place. I definitely checked torque specs, y'all, and this is you know, Milwaukee's new fancy torque wrench.
It's called sarcasm!
What's that taste like?
Damn it, Goku!
Why isn't that just turning and turning and respinning? What is going on? Don't tell me that shit's stripped. You gotta be kidding me. What is going on? Oh, I guess it just wasn't all the way in place. Now it is. Huh. Okay, that scared me a little bit. I thought it stripped out. It just wasn't seated all the way in there. I didn't have it turned in as much as I thought I did. Can I do this without a universal? That sure would make it a little easier not having to fuck with that universal on there. Oh yeah, guess you can do it without a universal. Apparently. I mean, you can do it without a universal, but it's not quite straight, so I'm not going to try and torque it without the universal. I don't want to strain that plastic sensor and make it leak all over again, so I'll go ahead and use the universal. I just need to get it back on the socket. Here's the fun part. Okay, there we go. Universal back on the socket. Got it snug up against the block. And I am just going to tighten it just enough. I will stop right there. That's about how tight it was when I took it off. So that should work. Should work. Got to move these wires out of the way to take the socket off. Okay, there's not much room to work. So with these wires in the way, be as gentle as possible, removing the socket from the area so you do not strain the new plastic on the sensor. Last thing you want to do is strain that new plastic. The new sensor successfully installed. Go ahead and plug the put the plug back on. Now I should probably clean the oil out of there so it gets a good contact read. A little bit of oil up in there. Go ahead and clean that. Now let's figure out what the orientation of this sensor is. Make sure we plug it in the right way. The pin, kind of hard to see. The pin is towards the top and it does have a slot for the plug, so it can't only go on there one way. And push that back up in there where it was. Alright, hopefully y'all can see what I'm doing. I gotta spin it, put it back that way, right? No, this way. Here's the top with the clip in the slot, so it needs to go back on. Just like so. And there it is, back on. New sensor installed. I'm going to clean this oil up from around below it, and then we're going to crank the bike up and make sure the new sensor isn't leaking oil before I put everything back together. Get all this oil down here out of the case, down below where it was dripping, just to make sure the new one isn't leaking. And yes, you can see here I've got a broken oil filler cap because plastic, come on. Do y'all really want us to buy a new filler cap every year and a half or 2 years, KTM? Y'all can't just make one out of aluminum that'll last? I think I'll be looking for an aluminum replacement to this crap that catches the tank here, makes it difficult to open anyway. I should have done that years ago, but I didn't think to encounter it breaking while tightening it. So getting it off is going to be fun in the future. I'll definitely have to use a pair of channel locks or something to remove it. And then I'm going to put an aluminum one back on. But yeah, new filter's on. I'm going to move these tools so they don't vibrate off the bike when I start it. Let's go ahead and crank the bike up and make sure that new sensor isn't leaking oil. Probably help if I take it out of first gear first. All right, let's see what she do. Alright y'all, I believe we can count that a successful install. I do not see oil leaking anymore, and I do not have any abnormal lights on the dash, so it should be reading the new sensor and oil pressure just fine. I would assume if it wasn't reading any oil pressure, it'd be throwing up some kind of code on the dash, so that's a good sign. I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble the bike, put the fairings and everything back together, and you know, take it for a spin and get it fully warm and revved up and make sure it doesn't leak. Alright y'all, we've had a successful install of the new oil pressure sensor, no leaks. I let it run for about 5 minutes sitting here on the stand, and looks perfect. No new oil, no leaks from what I can tell. I'm gonna put everything back together and we're gonna take it for a test rip. As I was saying earlier, to make sure y'all are very careful not to over tighten the screws for the fairing, because plastic, especially this thin, is not very strong. So I'll probably be adding another zip tie there. Heard I like to drive expensive cars. Don't reply to email. Well, fuck what you heard. Fuck what you heard. Y'all can see there what I was talking about. Be very careful not to over tighten those screws, or you end up like me here with all the zip tie stitches. So I like to start with this bolt on the top here, since I don't know, it's kind of easiest in my opinion to align everything from this one. Just go ahead and snug it up.